Not at this time.
Mr. Westmoreland?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Chairman, where does intellectual property rights come into play when you're trying to weigh
We have any case here?
unfair competition? Where does that come in?
I mean, increasingly, the perspective of the competition agencies, certainly going back to the mid-1990s, has been to treat intellectual property as a valuable form of property right on a plane with other forms of valuable property. That is, to regard this in the property and ideas as being an extremely important asset, just as we could point to other forms of physical property. There's been a trend to regard those property rights as being extremely important, and to take a great deal of care to see in what respects the specific character of property and ideas dictates any variation or adjustment in the way in which we enforce the laws. And this has been a matter of pressing concern for both of the competition agencies, certainly going back a long period of time, but intensely since the mid-1990s when the agencies revised their antitrust IP guidelines.
I've got an iPod, and it quit working. And so I took it to where I bought it, and they told me that I would have to take it back to Apple to get it looked at, that they didn't have the ability to do it, that only an Apple store could do it. Would you think that when Apple sells an iPod, that they need to give you a manual of how you could repair it yourself, or is that some type of antitrust, something that I've got to go back, there's only one place I can take it? Is that an antitrust? Do I have a complaint with you? Can I call you and tell you that
It's
I can only get my
202-326. I think it depends from our point of view on at least two things. One is, with respect to that device, do you have other choices in the marketplace? That is, let's assume there were a number of them, and they chose a policy that irritated and frustrated you. I suspect your reaction and mine might be, the next time I was thinking of buying things, I'm not going to buy this device from them. In fact, I remember that name. I'm not going to buy anything for you because you've made my purchasing experience worse. But a second thing we would look at carefully is, why the limitation? One argument might be, that would depend on a more careful factual evaluation, is assumptions we might make about the care with which individuals would be able to do the repairs. And if one could make a good argument that it took a highly specialized type of individual with a good deal of training to do that right, we might think that there's a greater basis for restricting who could do that. Because if it doesn't work after the repair, you're going to look at the name on the device, and you'll probably remember that, rather than that it was Bill's Repair Shop that did the work on it. That's the kind of issue that we would spend a great deal of time looking at in careful detail.
Okay. The aftermarket, which ranking member mentioned as far as automobile repairs, you mentioned an independent industry group, I guess, that handles some of the complaints that would come from a automotive repair shop or whatever, as far as getting some of these codes or whatever for repair. Do you know from that group how many complaints have been filed in a year, and the total number of repairs done to automobiles once they leave that showroom floor, and what percentage is done by who?
I don't know those numbers, Congressman. I know that indirectly, one thing we track very carefully is how many complaints come our way. And certainly over the past 12 months, with respect to end users, the consumers you were referring to before in your other example, we haven't received complaints of this type. Occasionally we get them, but I'm not acquainted with what the experience within the dispute resolution process itself has been. But certainly if the committee, you or other researchers have data on that we ought to be focusing on, I'd welcome the chance to do that.
Would you be surprised if I told you that 500 million post-warranty service orders are done each year? 75% of those are done by independent repair services, 25% by new car dealers. And I think that there was less than 100 complaints last year that was filed with the National Automotive Service Task Force. That doesn't seem like a large number when you think of those repairs. And, you know, do you think that you have any trained staff enough? Because I understand that some of the hearings I had last year, I didn't attend any of the hearings, but my understanding was that they wanted your agency to be involved in this. Do you think that you've got the staff, the trained personnel, and to investigate, respond, compile, update these stats and statistics and innovations that are in the automobile industry every year?
One of the reasons that we have found it helpful to explore the sorts of alternative dispute resolution and voluntary industry cooperation mechanisms that you described before is that it's a way to see if we can get good solutions that doesn't involve that kind of commitment of resources. I would add that there have been a number of areas in which Congress has asked us at different times by statute to take on demanding new challenges, and we have a pretty good history of responding to those challenges with resources that Congress has generously provided us. So I wouldn't say immediately that it would be an easy thing for us to do. I think some of these other paths are certainly worthy of further exploration, but were the choice to be made to ask us to do it, it's been a highly adaptable and successful process by which we've taken on major challenges.
Would the gentleman yield?
Sure.
For a second? I hear you, and you talk to us about listening and voluntary agreement and workshops. He's asking you about complaints that have been raised. Can you talk to us about any specific action taken on behalf of small businesses regarding enforcement of antitrust laws?
Many of our cases involving real estate, professional services, restrictions on the use of the internet and
specifically on the issue that he raised.
On the issue of auto repair, no, we haven't. We have done investigations.
And?
We haven't brought any cases. We do look at the complaints carefully. As I mentioned before, the existing legal framework on which an antitrust complaint would be premised imposes some extremely demanding standards, in my view, about bringing cases. But we have taken complaints that have come to us, Madam, with the greatest care.
Yield back.
And I thank the chairman for bringing that up, because I think that it's important to know that you have looked at some of these cases. And I'm assuming you're saying they haven't risen to the level of where you feel like there's been any action needed or necessary from the FTC.
That's correct.
Madam Chairman, I'll yield back the balance of my time.